They are the oldest of myths we've ever found. Etched into stone, passed down through temples and tombs, they tell of gods who warred in the sky, kings who defied death, and a universe always on the brink of collapse. Before Olympus, before Asgard, before even the Garden of Eden, there was Mesopotamia and Egypt. This is Pantheon mythology, and this is Mesopotamian and Egyptian mythology explained in 17 minutes. If you too want to be etched into stone, check out Pantheon Apparel, our clothing brand inspired by myths, folklore and legends. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers, was home to some of the earliest civilizations humanity ever knew. Names like Sumer, Akkad, Assyria, and Babylonia shaped not just history, but myth. And the myths they left behind, etched into the clay tablets in the cuneiform script, are among the oldest pieces of literature in existence. These weren't just stories. They were origin myths, divine mandates, cosmic wars, and moral reckonings. Tales that shaped belief systems for millennia to come. These stories explore the beginnings of the world, the battle between order and chaos, the fragile place of humanity between the gods and the haunting inevitability of death. And while they originate from ancient Sumer or Akkad, they echo forward through the pages of the Bible, through Greek and Egyptian legends, through everything that followed. The themes, immortality, divine right, destruction and rebirth are strikingly familiar. It begins with Sumer, the oldest of them all, emerging sometime between the 6th and 5th millennia BC. The Sumerians gave us writing, cuneiform, and with it the foundation of mythology itself. From their culture came the earliest stories of Gilgamesh, a pantheon that would influence the gods of every power that followed. After Sumer came Akkad, a civilization that rose in the 3rd millennium BC. Its central city, also called Akkad, became the heart of an empire that absorbed much of Sumerian tradition while introducing its own. In the north, Assyria emerged, lasting from around 2500 BCE until its fall in the 7th century. Though it began as part of the Akkadian Empire, Assyria would become one of the two major Akkadian-speaking powers. The other one was Babylonia, whose capital, Babylon, would become legendary not only for the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders, but as a seat of learning, power and theology. It was in Babylon that some of Mesopotamia's most enduring myths would be recorded and canonized. The gods of Mesopotamia form a vast and often contradictory pantheon. At the root of it all are Ki, the earth goddess, and An, the sky god, a classic earth mother and sky father pairing found across many mythologies. From them came Enlil, god of air, and Ninlil, goddess of wind. Enlil and Ninlil produced Nana, the god of the moon. Meanwhile, An fathered another god, Enki, the god of water, wisdom and mischief, with the goddess Namu. Enki then paired with his sister, Ninki-Kuga, to produce Ningal, another moon goddess. And it was Ningal and Nana who gave birth to two of the most well-known Mesopotamian deities, Utu, the sun god, and Inanna, the goddess of love and war. Along with Ninhursag, another important earth goddess, these 7, An, Enlil, Enki, Nana, Utu, Inanna, and Ninhursag, form the core of the Mesopotamian divine order. But even divine order begins with chaos. The Babylonian creation myth, Enuma Elish, tells of a time before the gods, when the two primordial beings ruled, Apsu, the god of fresh water, and Tiamat, the goddess of salt water and the embodiment of chaos. From their union came the first generation of gods, loud, unruly, and powerful. Apsu, disturbed by their noise, plotted to destroy them. But Enki, god of wisdom, discovered his plan and killed him. Tiamat, enraged by the murder of her consort, created an army of monsters and prepared for war. In response, the gods turned to a new champion, Marduk, son of Enki. Marduk faced Tiamat in a battle that shook the heavens. In the end, he pierced her heart with an arrow and split her body in two, one half becoming the sky, the other the earth. From the remains he fashioned the world, the stars, the moon, the winds, and, eventually, humanity. Babylon was built in his honor, and Marduk assumed his place as king of the gods. But this world, newly created and teeming with life, would not remain stable. Mesopotamian myth is haunted by the threat of floods, sent by the gods to erase their creations. In the Akkadian version, Enki creates humans to carry out the burdens of divine labor, but their growing numbers disturb Enlil, who decides to wipe them out. Enki warns a man named Atrahasis, instructing him to build a boat. Atrahasis survives the flood, and in the aftermath the gods impose new restrictions on humanity: death, infertility, and celibacy to control their numbers. The Sumerians tell a similar story in their Eridu Genesis. Again, the gods destroy humanity with a flood. Again, Enki warns a man, this time Zeus Sudra, who builds a boat and survives, preserving humankind. These flood myths, thousands of years older than the story of Noah, laid the groundwork for a narrative that would echo through countless traditions. Then there is Gilgamesh, a story as old as writing itself, a real king of the city of Uruk, transformed by myth into something more. In the epic that bears his name, Gilgamesh begins as a tyrant, powerful, arrogant, and cruel. To humble him, the gods created Enkidu, a wild man who becomes his equal. But instead of clashing, the two form a bond and embark on heroic quests, slaying monsters, defying the gods themselves. Their triumphs end in tragedy. Enkidu dies, struck down by the gods, and Gilgamesh is forced to face the one truth he cannot conquer: death. He travels in search of Utnapishtim, the immortal man who survived the flood. Utnapishtim tells his story, how he was warned by Enki, how he built a boat and saved his family, how the gods granted him eternal life. But Gilgamesh fails the final test. He cannot earn what Utnapishtim has, and so he returns to Uruk, not as a god, but as a man, wiser, older, and changed. He learns that immortality was never meant for him, that his legacy would be in the city he built, the people he ruled, and the memory of his story. Yet Gilgamesh is not the only figure whose actions sealed the fate of humanity. In another tale we meet Adapa, a mortal granted immense intelligence by Enki. One day, while fishing, Adapa is attacked by the south wind and responds by snapping its wings. Summoned before An, the supreme god, Adapa is warned by Enki not to accept any food or drink in heaven. But An, impressed by Adapa's wisdom, offers him the food of immortality. Adapa refuses, obeying Enki's warning, and in that moment, humanity is denied eternal life. Disease, suffering, and death become our inheritance. The gods, it seems, never created humans to thrive, only to serve. Mesopotamian texts make it clear humans were created for the benefit of the gods. Prayer, ritual, and omen reading were not optional, they were necessary acts of devotion. Cities each had their own patron deity, and rulers claimed descent from the gods. Gilgamesh was said to be semi-divine. Later kings would use their supposed divine ancestry to justify their power, placing themselves above their subjects. These myths were never just stories, they were tools of belief, control, and of rule. And while Mesopotamia has long since crumbled, buried beneath centuries of sand and conquest, the myths endure. Egyptian mythology has come to us through fragments scattered across hymns, temple walls, and ancient texts. Though broken, these stories formed the backbone of Egyptian religion and culture, explaining how the world came into being and why it is the way it is. They share much with Mesopotamian myth, including death, rebirth, and the pursuit of eternal life. But at the heart of Egyptian mythology lies a central principle: the struggle between order and chaos. This eternal battle is embodied by the concept of Ma'at, the principle of truth, justice, and balance. Ma'at was more than a goddess. She was the cosmic order itself, and it was the pharaoh's sacred duty to uphold her. Where once the gods kept chaos in check, now that burden fell to the ruler of Egypt. This divine mandate gave pharaohs a connection to the gods themselves, and through the myths we meet some of the most iconic names in Egyptian religion. Gods like Osiris, Anubis, and Horus, alongside chaos serpents and bloodthirsty lionesses who drank themselves into stupors. One of the most important collections of deities in Egyptian myth was the Ennead, a group of 9 gods worshipped at Heliopolis. At the center of it all was Atum, known as Ra, the sun god. He created himself, emerging from the primordial waters. From his body came 2 children, Shu, god of air, and Tefnut, goddess of rain. These 2 then produced Keb, god of earth, and Nut, the sky goddess. Nut, adorned with stars, arched over her brother Keb, creating the space between earth and sky. Keb and Nut, in turn, gave birth to 4 more gods: Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. Osiris was the god of agriculture, life, death, and the underworld. He ruled Egypt alongside his sister and consort Isis. Set, the god of storms, deserts, and violence, paired with Nephthys, the goddess of death and darkness. And Atum, having brought all this into motion, was said to have ruled as Egypt's first pharaoh. Central to Egyptian belief was the idea of Ma'at. This wasn't just an abstract concept, it was a living force that governed the universe. The dead were judged by it, their hearts weighed on a scale against a feather belonging to Ma'at. If their hearts were light, they earned a place in the field of reeds, the paradise called Aru. But if their hearts were heavy, they were devoured by a monstrous demon named Amid, a terrifying hybrid of crocodile, lion, and hippo. Pharaohs were judged by the same standard. It was their role to uphold Ma'at, to preserve balance, and keep chaos from creeping back into the world. But even the gods struggled to maintain it. According to one myth, humanity had begun to plot against Ra, who was still ruling on Earth. To crush the rebellion, Ra sent his daughter, Sekhmet, a lion-headed goddess of war. She tore through the humans in a frenzy of bloodlust, killing thousands. But when she wouldn't stop, Ra tricked her. He poured beer dyed like red blood across the land. Sekhmet drank deeply, mistaking it for blood, and passed out drunk. When she awoke, she reverted to her peaceful form, Hathor, goddess of love and music. Ra, exhausted by the ordeal, left Earth behind. He passed rule to Osiris and ascended to the heavens, where he continued to uphold Ma'at from above. But even in the sky, Ra was not safe. Every day he travelled in his solar bark across the sky, bringing light to the world. And every night his boat descended into the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. There, Ra faced his greatest enemy, Apep, a monstrous chaos serpent who sought to destroy the sun and plunge the cosmos into darkness. Night after night, Ra fought Apep. He was never alone. Other gods, including Set, joined him in the nightly battle. They could slay the serpent, but never destroy him completely. With each dawn, Ra's victory was reborn, and so too was Ma'at. Order prevailed, but only through constant struggle. The battle between order and chaos wasn't limited to the heavens. It played out on Earth too. In the story of Osiris, after Ra left, Osiris took the throne of Egypt, ruling alongside Isis. But his rule ended in betrayal. Set, driven by jealousy and a thirst for power, murdered his brother. In some versions, he tore Osiris into pieces and scattered them across the land. Isis, devastated but undeterred, set out to recover his body. With the help of Nephthys, she gathered the pieces, all except one, and reassembled them. Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming, helped wrap Osiris in linen, and Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, completed the ritual. Osiris was resurrected, briefly brought back to life. Isis conceived a son with him, Horus, but Osiris was bound to the underworld. He could not stay. He became king of the dead. To the Egyptians, this myth was meant to be something profound. Osiris's death and resurrection were more than a cycle, they were a promise that through proper burial and the correct rituals, eternal life was possible. The dead could join Osiris in the Duat, provided they were judged worthy. Horus, meanwhile, grew up under the protection of his mother. When he came of age, he challenged Set to reclaim the throne. The battle between them was brutal and drawn out, filled with trickery and violence. At one point, Horus gouged out Set's testicles. Set retaliated by blinding Horus in one eye. The gods themselves were divided over who should rule. The contest went on until finally Horus triumphed. He became the rightful king of Egypt. From then on, every pharaoh was said to be the living embodiment of Horus, a direct descendant of the gods. His divine blood gave them the right to rule and tied them to the struggle for Ma'at, a battle that never truly ended. These myths weren't just the oldest we've found. They were the first to give structure to the world, to define the sacred and to place humanity between gods and chaos. They shaped how we imagine creation, kingship, judgment, and the afterlife. In later myths, in Greece, and in even the earliest Hebrew texts, you can hear faint echoes of their stories. Not every tradition followed their lead, but the ones that did carried their influence for thousands of years. They weren't just ancient, they were foundational, and their legacy still lingers.